Welcome to the Map It Forward podcast, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by FAFCoffees. If you're looking for pristine Brazilian coffees, please head to fafbrazil.com and hit up felipecroce via email at felipecroce@fafcoffees.com. You can also check out his details in the show notes below. Jean Orlowski, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It's such a pleasure to have you. I have been excited about talking to a Hawaiian coffee producer since we've had the podcast. I have learned a little and a lot about what's going on in Hawaii. And you're the first producer that we've had from Hawaii on the podcast. So this is very exciting.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Yes, a lot of things going on in Hawaii, so it should be fun.
Yeah, so you own Hala Coffee. Is that correct?
Hala Tree
Coffee. Now, so this is really interesting to me. Why is it called Hala?
Okay, so it's called Hala Tree because, well, when we came to Hawaii, we bought our first property and we were looking for a name. It's not easy to find a name. So
Have you seen how many terribly named cafes there are?
Yeah, that's not terrible. They are just different than others. So all the good names are already taken, so it's difficult to find a good one. So we have a big Hala tree, which is a native tree, more or less, here in Hawaii. And so we have a big Hala tree on our property. And so my wife said, why should we not call Hala tree? So that's how it came.
Wow, how lovely. What does a Hala tree look like? Does it fruit?
So it has fruits. I think it's because there is a male and a female tree, and I don't remember which one has fruit. One of them has fruit. It's not really edible, but it's a nice fruit. When you open it, it's very colorful inside.
Oh, nice.
But the Hala tree is used mainly actually to do lohala. So, those waving of leaves and making boxers, hats, or these kind of things.
Baskets and things like that?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. In Arabic, Hala means welcome.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, what a lovely name for a coffee farm, the Welcome Tree Farm.
No, I heard that because we have some clients actually in the Arabic region there, and so they told that to me. I didn't know when we've created the name. I didn't know that.
And it's when you say to someone Hala, like it's said to it's like an extra way of expressing love and welcome. So you don't say it to it wouldn't just be. It's like the difference between giving someone a wave and giving someone a hug. Hala is like the hug, where hello and like welcome is the wave. So it's just such a lovely way to name a farm.
So that's good. That's an additional good thing for Hala Tree.
So how do you become? You haven't been a farmer your whole life?
No. So how it started? I'll give you a little bit of background.
Yeah, please.
So I'm by trade, actually, I'm a technology engineer.
Okay.
I had my diploma in France a long time ago.
I would never have guessed.
And
your accent.
So, yeah, well, the accent, that's in this one I will keep forever, I think. So I've started by studying technology and working for broker dealers, trading mainly futures and options.
Oh, wow.
In commodity. That gave me the opportunity to travel worldwide. I've spent a lot of time in Asia, based in Singapore. I was traveling in the whole region, so Japan, Hong Kong, Taiwan, that's in all those Philippines, you name it.
Yeah, wow.
That's when I started for a few years. Then I went to Chicago because those big futures and options market, that's where they are. All the grain markets, they're in Chicago.
ICE is in Chicago, isn't it? The
ICE now is it not based in New York?
Maybe. I'm still learning about all of this.
All those markets are becoming international now, so they have places a little bit
everywhere. More about it. Trust me. After this conversation,
I'm not sure I remember everything. So after Chicago, I went to India for a few years. I've built an offshore development center for a French bank.
Oh wow.
And then after that, I came back to New York working for a broker dealer on the stock market, so Nasdaq and all the others.
So you weren't wearing Hawaiian shirts every day in that job?
No, but it's starting to be much easier on Wall Street. When I started, we all had ties. Now, it's a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah, I can imagine your stress levels were huge as well.
It's 24/7 and very fast pace.
Yeah.
So, but that's how it works, when I've started, we were working mainly on the phone. So we had computers, but the trading, actually, the end client didn't have the capability to trade on a screen. So the broker dealer was in between, and talking story on the phone, which was fun because each time you had a client, you had to talk to him, not only actually trade, but you had to know your client.
Yeah. Hello, how are you?
Exactly.
Like
now everything's electronic. Now everything's electronic, so you talk to your clients once in a while, but not as much as before.
Yeah, wow.
But so after about 25 years in this kind of environment, I had enough. So it was already a few years. I was talking to my wife saying I need to do something else. I had enough.
Yeah.
And so we are looking at different options. But we liked Hawaii. We came a few times, and last time we came to Hawaii before coming definitively, we discovered that there was a good coffee because I didn't know anything about coffee before that.
Did you trade on the ICE exchange?
No, well, we were trading. I wasn't trading on it, but we were trading on ICE. Yes.
Yeah. So you kind of knew about. Well, you didn't really know about coffee, did you?
No,
because
I didn't know anything.
That's knows. Yeah,
exactly. That's it's trading coffee doesn't mean coffee.
That has nothing to do with the actual product.
Yeah. So other than drinking my regular Starbucks cup of coffee, I didn't know much more than that.
How's your Starbucks tasting now?
It's different.
Very diplomatic, sir.
Always.
Go on.
So we came to Hawaii and we tasted some coffee, some very good coffee. And so with my wife, we started to look around a little bit, came back to New York because I was still working at that time. And I've started to gather information overall if coffee was something that was feasible.
Mm-hmm.
I'm again an engineer, so everything needs to be planned properly.
Of course.
And when we decided to come, that's been we wanted to have a plan. That's been the plan. You can always adjust, but we wanted to make sure that we came to make a living out of the coffee, not just to have a small coffee farm, and that's it. No, we really wanted to have a plan to basically have the best we could.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That was very important. So I've started to look at it. Then I've selected a few farms on the web on one of the websites, with all those properties. And I've selected about 5 or 6 of them. We came back, we visited, and we just bought the first farm.
You just bought the first farm that you saw?
Yeah, no. The first, the best out of the 5.
Oh, okay.
The one we had some criteria. We did mistakes also, because not knowing coffee, that's been probably if we had to buy one now, we would do something different. But not about coffee. I mean, maybe about the property itself.
Okay.
But we're happy still. That's okay.
That's awesome. I love to hear the fact that you don't regret the choice of coming into coffee. A lot of people that I speak to say, if I had have known how hard it was to get into coffee and stay in whether it be a cafe or a roastery or whatever the business is, they said I probably wouldn't have done it. And
I can fully understand that. When we've started, so we've started with a 6-acre farm, so which is relatively small.
Uh-huh.
Then you're a little bit in between with this kind of size. It's too small to really have a team working for you. Mm-hmm. So you need to do a lot of work by yourself. And that's where it's becoming very hard.
Yeah.
It's interesting to do it, no problem. And I did, and that's no problem, but it's hard work. It's very hard work.
Oh, yeah.
So when you're small, you have basically, I would say, double of the challenges of a larger farm. The larger farm would have different challenges, I would say.
Yeah.
but you have challenges where every day you need to be on your farm and you need to work it. And
you need to learn about it, right?
And you need to learn also. The learning process, we had to go through it. So
it never ends. From what I keep getting told is people who have been farming for 20 years or even generations are starting to find new ways in coffee, given that there's new technology that's showing different things with regards to genetics and varietals and things like that. Everything they know about coffee is starting to shift and change because of the new technology and the science that's uncovering new ways of agriculture in coffee.
It's very difficult to follow because there are so many new things that you need to do your day to day, and on top of that, you need to always keep track of the new trends that are going through for everything, for farming, for processing, for marketing. Because, well, marketing, it's also something that not all of us know. It's with all the tools that are existing today, it's difficult to be everywhere. And but okay, that's what's fun also,
Yeah, there's people say, oh, I just want to quit my job and go and open a cafe, or I really like roasting coffee, I want to get out of my corporate job and just go open a roastery. I'm like, don't do it. Unless you understand what's ahead of you, you've got to learn how to do your craft, you've got to learn how to manage people, build a culture, understand your financial statements, learn how to market your product, learn how to get an audience or a customer base, and then grow that customer base and understand branding and packaging and again and again and on and on and on. And they're like, it's really that hard? I'm like, are you fucking kidding?
Yeah, no, it's hard. Now, to be honest, also being in Hawaii, in Kona, it helps because, well, we are a very small region worldwide. That means we are a very teeny percentage of the overall coffee, and we have a very good coffee in general. So usually selling the coffee is something that's happening relatively easy. I'm not saying that you should not do all the, the social media and marketing, but still, if you have a good coffee in Kona, usually you're sold out very quickly.
Right.
And that helps a lot.
So let's talk about Kona, because y'all have got like an interesting ecosystem going on there that I don't know why, but it's not really, it seems to be very insulated from the rest of the coffee supply chain. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we can say insulated. Now, we have to know that we have one of the best coffee in the world for multiple reasons.
Okay. Price.
Well, of course, we have the price also that helps.
For a lot of people who don't know, I was shocked when I started asking a few people who work in coffee, well, what do you think of Kona coffee? Have you ever had Kona coffee before? And a lot of people thought that Kona coffee came from Kenya.
Yeah, that I didn't know. But
a lot of people don't know that Hawaiian coffee, or particularly Kona coffee, is a big deal and that it's so expensive. Why don't we tell people the kind of prices you get for your green? In general.
We Hala Tree were certified organic, so we have a premium on top of that. So for us, that's in the price on green will vary anywhere between 20 to about I would say 28 is at the high end for organic.
Yes, so when you heard that correctly.
Non-organic probably will go about 16 or so.
Yeah. So for anyone who's listening who is wondering if you heard that price correctly, yes, non-organic is around $16 green per pound, and organic is up to about 28.
Right? Yeah, let's say 24, 25 would be the average price for organic. For good beans. So we are talking about the at the high range would be for the extra fancy or the pea berries, I would say.
Right. So
now, but we have to say also that it's a very good coffee, and for multiple reasons. That's we have the environment, of course. We have the weather. We're on the island. It's a volcanic island. It's also a very good coffee because we do everything by hand.
Is there no mechanized farms in Kona?
In Kona, I don't know any mechanized farm. On the Big Island, I think there are some if you go further south, because they have bigger fields. But the reason is because of the terrain. It's basically very difficult to work with. We are on the volcano and it's very rocky. So even when we're grading the field, we can use a mower. Now, to use those big machines to pick the coffee, that would be quite difficult here.
Okay. Can we, before we get deep into it, can you give people an understanding of what the different regions, coffee growing regions are in Hawaii? Please.
Yeah, so I probably will not name all of them because I'll forget some, but of course,
no
Kona is the one that's well known. I would say all the other are more or less, I don't want to say following Kona, but Kona is really the name in Hawaii.
Right.
Then you have,
it's a brand. It's more than just a name, really, isn't it? It's a very well-known brand.
Worldwide, it's what makes the reputation of Hawaii is Kona. It's not another coffee. So here on the big island of Hawaii, so you have Kona, you have Kau, which is the other one that's quite well known. It's a little bit further south, and then you go even further south, you start to have coffee also in Puna. And I think there is another one on the other side of the island. I don't remember actually how it's called. Now on the other island, you have coffee, of course, on Kauai, on Maui. Kauai usually are larger farms. So maybe coming back to Kona, actually, in Kona you have a lot of small farms. So I don't know the exact number, probably 800 to about 1,000 farms in Kona. Average size being around 3 acres.
Oh wow, they're quite small.
And that's why I was talking about the challenges for the farmers is that when you have a small farms, you more or less need to do everything yourself on the farm.
Right.
And that's very challenging. You need to be every day from 7 in the morning to the afternoon. You need to work your farm because during the whole year, well, we are in a very humid environment. Everything's growing very fast, so you need to maintain your farm.
How many seasons do you have?
Well, mainly 2 seasons here in Hawaii. You have the rainy season and the dry season. Now,
and harvest. Do you harvest once a year or?
So we are harvesting for about 3 to 4 months. Usually between let's say about end of July to about January, with the peak of the season around October, November. That's depending on the elevation. That's more or less what you will have here in Kona.
Okay.
So, and we have multiple pickings during that time.
Okay.
One field we will pick about probably 5, 6, 7 times.
Wow.
So
for anyone, just for anyone who is listening who doesn't understand why that happens, it's because, and please correct me if I'm misspeaking here, Jean, but from what's been explained to me, you want to pick the cherries that are ripe and leave the ones that are unripe on the tree. So if you've ever seen a coffee plant with a stem that has the cherries on it, you'll notice that they have different colors on them. The cherries are of different color, and that is indicative of how ripe they are. Now, the redder they are, or I guess it's up to purple, isn't it? It's like a deep, dark.
Yeah, so basically every farmer will choose more or less when he's deciding to pick. So, but when you pick, you want them red. They can be purple, but not overripe either. So you need to choose basically, and you need to train your pickers also. That's very important, you know. So again, everything through the process becomes important when you pick. We have about, I would say 5 to 6 flowerings depending on the years. That's happening between, let's say, we have very small ones in December, but the big flowerings are February, March. And it takes about 7 months basically for them to really have the red cherries.
I do have to say, Madeline posted a video of the flowering plants. I don't know if it was on your farm or somebody else's farm, but I have to say it looks exceptionally beautiful in Hawaii. I mean, it's beautiful everywhere you go. It looks like snow.
It's called Kona snow actually here. We call that Kona snow.
Just stunning.
And it smells like jasmine.
Oh.
So when you smell it in the whole, you know, even when you're on the highway during the peak season of the flowers, that's when you can smell it everywhere.
Oh, wow. That must be so beautiful. As a producer, it must be something that just warms your heart when you just go out there and smell your coffee trees.
Yeah, we are happy. That's the easy part actually, because the flowers, they're here, so we are happy.
Yeah.
Then we need to make sure that they're producing properly behind.
Yeah, wow. So you said you do 7 pickings.
About
7 pickings. So that means you go through 7 times and pick the ripe cherries. Is that correct?
Correct. So we pick by hand. So basically, we have our own team of pickers at Hala Tree, because we are large enough basically to have our own. The benefit is that we train them. They know exactly what to pick. It's not only picking, it's that at the same time they're cleaning the trees, because we have pests or some, even if you try to be very clean, you still have some cherries that are overripe or in a bad shape. So you try to remove those ones also, put them separate, in a separate basket. So all those pickers are trained to do that.
Yeah, wow.
They have a basket in front of them and basically picking from the trees. That's the way it works.
Do you pick?
Yeah, I pick, but I'm very slow. I'm a very slow picker.
You're a Frenchman.
Yeah.
You're going to sip and then stop for a little bit of lunch.
Yeah, that's maybe, but I'm slow. A good picker in Kona, so depending who you talk to. On our farms, a good picker will do about 300 pounds. You have some farms, they're telling you they can do 600.
300 pounds in how long? In one day?
One day. So the day, usually we start picking around 7 at the farm and we pick until, let's say, around 4 on our farm. Knowing that our pickers, they select more or less what they pick. I don't want them to strip basically the branch. Yeah. That's important. By default, they will have a little bit less. The fact that they're taking their time, to separate the cherries that are bad and so on, that will take a little bit more time. 600 pounds, usually that's when you start to have, when you open the bags, you see that they're not all as ripe as you want. So 300 pounds is the peak for our farm. It's still a lot.
Hey, when you're selling at $16 a pound,
so we're talking about cherries. Cherries right. Here in Kona, the prices are it's a different price. So the price for cherries, I don't know. I'm not selling or buying cherries, but probably around $2 per pound.
Well, no, what I'm saying is when you're selling coffee at such an expensive price, you want to make sure that right from the picking stage, you're maintaining the highest quality that you can, right? So that's the difference between somebody who's going to sell it for cheaper and somebody who's going to be able to ask a higher price. Is you're going through the trouble of ensuring, it's like with any product, if the quality is up there and you've gone to the extra mile to make sure that at every single stage in the supply chain or the process that you are ensuring the utmost quality is a standard that everybody must meet. You're going to be able to, it's going to take a lot more time, first of all, and a lot more attention, but the rewards are worth it.
Yeah. And again, so it takes more time, but our team, that means it's our team, they're trained, that means I make sure they're happy. Of course, we're controlling what they're doing, but they know, I think they're basically part of the farm, part of the family. So, and that helps to get a good quality at the end.
Can we talk about that for a second? I'm fascinated right now about workplace culture. What's the culture like on your farm?
Well, first we all work together and we have one goal. That's important. It's maybe a little bit my corporate, background also. So it's very important for me to have a team and to have a trusted team. It's not always easy, but overall, that's the most important. We are one family basically when we work. We all work together, and it's not because I'm the owner that basically I'm different than anybody else. I'm working.
You work for the company the same as they work for the company, right?
Exactly. So they're part of the company, and we have the same targets. And each time we have, they know exactly what are our objectives within Hala Tree, because we work on the farm, but we also help other farmers. So quality of our work is number one at the end. They're trained for everything, every step or every task they do, they're trained for it. And I'm spending the time I need basically to train them, whatever I know. But I'm also learning from them, because some of them are coming, they do coffee since much.
Isn't that a lovely exchange though, when you're learning from your employees as much as you're giving?
Well, but that's the way it should work, for me as a manager, I'm always explaining my guys that I don't know everything. I do mistake as much as anybody else. And for me, it's important basically to hire the people that will bring a value added more than anything else. Because if not, how do I improve my quality? That's mean I can learn, of course, but okay, well, at one point it's difficult to know everything.
Yeah, it's so true what they say. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm smart, but not that smart.
Cheers to that, sir. Cheers. So, how do you go about finding people? Is it a profession in Kona to be a picker?
No, it's tough. That's been we don't have enough manpower in general. So I'm lucky actually that I found a family basically of coffee farmers or workers, and they have family, and so that's how we build actually our team.
And you
But
treat them well, so they want to come
yeah,
work for you. And yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Wow.
But it's hard because so it's difficult to find actually the manpower. Why is it difficult? Because we don't have enough housing here in Kona. It's expensive.
Oh, wow.
So we need as soon as you start to get bigger and you want a team, you need to think about all those things to provide the housing and everything else for them, so they feel comfortable also and they stay with you.
Wow, it's interesting the similarities between the challenges you're experiencing and the challenges that almost every other origin experiences.
Probably yes. That's when I don't know the other country, but they must have the same kind of problems.
Yeah,
And so and it's a big problem. That's when it's very stressful. When small or big farmers, we have different stress, but manpower is a big stress because when we're picking, we need to have our team. I sign my team usually around April. I need to make sure I have the right number of pickers. If not, I'm leaving cherries on the tree.
Your money on the table, right?
Yeah. Now, a small farmer, as soon as you're more than about 1 acre, you need to have pickers also. If not, you don't have the time to pick your coffee. So you also have a different challenge is to find those groups of pickers that are moving from farm to farm.
Yeah, wow. So you have your own team.
Yeah,
and they stay with you the whole season.
Hala Tree, we have our own team. At the beginning, we didn't, but now, so I didn't mention, but now we are managing about 80 acres.
80?
80.
You went from 6 acres to 80 acres?
Yeah, so we have 40 of our own and 40 that we're managing either for other farms or that basically we're working against the crop. We have different models. Our model since about now 4 years was to increase the size of the land or the production more than the land, because that's what's important at the end. But it was also to help farmers to become organic. So all the farms we do are either certified by, when I say by us, we always use an external company to certify because we cannot certify our own farm. So, or they're in transition.
Oh, wow.
So basically the whole idea is to bring as many people as possible to be organic.
As an engineer, are you more invested in the idea of organic farming, or is it just personally you think that that's a better way to grow coffee?
I don't think it's a better way if we purely speak technically, because at the end it's farming. Organic is important for me for the environment. That's
what I was trying to get at.
When we talk organic, we don't use any chemicals. I think we are very, very careful on everything we do on the land, on the trees, on the processing and everything. That's the most important. And on top of that, we are on an island. It's not very big. So everything we basically do that's non-organic, while for me, we are really going against the whole environment we have.
Yeah, you affect your ecosystem.
Exactly.
It's so much. I'm going to make sure I introduce you to Felipecroce. His mother inherited the coffee farm that they own in Brazil, and before she inherited it, it wasn't an organic farm, and she transformed it into an organic coffee farm in Brazil. And I think you guys should know each other.
That's been it's always good to know people.
Oh yeah, I think you guys will become very quick friends, because he and his family have done amazing things with what they're doing. And for Elixir, we use their coffee, and it's delicious.
Yeah.
And I just think it's great when people who are doing similar things connect. I'll make sure that I connect you guys via email. I think that would be awesome.
Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So when it comes to going from like such a small farm to a much bigger operation, talk to me about the processing of the coffee. Actually, before that, what varietals of coffee do you have?
So we, as of now, we are about 70% Kona Typica, which is the tree you find here in Kona, and we must be about 30% of different varietals. So we have Red Bourbon that are producing. We've planted some SL28 that will produce this year, and we have some Geisha. We should have a little bit of them this year, but probably a larger crop next year. So
Hawaiian Geisha. I didn't know that there was much of that around.
Why Geisha? Well, I'll be honest also, is that, Geisha actually are the most expensive coffee in the world.
Oh, yeah. Hey, it's business, right?
So what I thought is basically, okay, well, it's the most expensive. We're in Hawaii and I'm organic. It should be a good mix. Now, we'll see how the taste goes. That's been, of course, but I really don't see why it should not be actually a good coffee.
Is this your first harvest with the
Geisha trees? Have very, very little. So I don't think we'll have enough this year to really sell. Or if we do, it will be, we're talking about few pounds.
Right. But enough for you to roast and enjoy with your wife and your team.
Yes.
There's got to be some payoff to doing it.
Yeah, that's been, we'll see if it's good. That's been, hopefully we'll cross our fingers and we'll see.
Have you heard of the work that World Coffee Research is doing?
I'm always reading about a lot of things. So there is a lot of research going on.
Right. But have you heard of some of the things that they're doing with trying to marry up which are the varietals that grow the best, produce the highest yields with the best flavor, or the most favorable under the most favorable conditions in different origins? Have you heard of any of that work that's been going on?
I read a little bit about that, but I'm not really an expert on that. So.
It sounds like you're kind of replicating something similar to that experiment with what you're doing, given that you've got a number of different varietals that you're growing. Are you finding that there's different varietals that just naturally take to the terroir of Hawaii, of Kona, better than others?
I think every tree can grow because we have a good environment. Now, after that, it's really the quality of the cupping and the yield on the tree. And some trees will have less yield. Like the Geisha, in the way I see, they're very slow to grow. So, when we plant a tree, usually we start to get some cherries after 3 years, really 5, really to have a better production. Geisha will take me at least 2 more years, I think, to have a good production. So, and that costs. That's been as a farmer, it's not free. When we have an acre of land planted with a type of trees, and we need to wait 2 more years to get some yield, while we still need to maintain this acre of field. We need to fertilize, we need to fertilizer. Yes. So everything is important.
Yeah, wow. It'll be interesting to see how that cups.
I will see that this year a little bit.
Do you only grow coffee, or do you companion plant with organic farming?
We only do coffee. We have a little bit of tea. We do mamaki tea, which is a native plant here in Hawaii. But it's mainly because it's growing wild on the side of the field, more than really growing it. Now, what we do also, maybe we can talk about that later, I don't know, but because you want to talk about processing, but we try to use everything we can from the tree. So we are doing cascara, which is the skin of the coffee.
Yeah, what do you do with the cascara?
Well, we sell it as tea.
Okay.
But we're also working on other brews that we're testing as of now, because it's a very nice flavor. So you can play a lot with it.
I'm going to ask what's probably going to sound like a dumb question, but I've been waiting to have a coffee producer on so that I can ask what sounds like a dumb question. Why can't you use cascara as a form of fertilizer to reinvigorate the soil with the nutrients that came from the tree?
So it's not that you cannot use the skin, but coffee is very acidic. So if you take actually the pulp that's coming from the processing, if we put that on the ground immediately, it will almost burn everything that's below.
Okay, so coffee shouldn't grow in acidic soil. Is that correct?
Well, it needs to be more or less neutral, I would say.
Okay. All right.
But the skin, what we do is that we make big piles, and usually when we start to have a pile that's a year or 2 years old, then we start to spread it again on the field. But not really as a fertilizer. You know, fertilizer needs to have nutrition.
So can you not mix that in with as a compost sort of a thing? You can. And I mean, again, I have a science degree, but it's in genetics, so I don't know shit about this stuff. So I'm smart in some things and know nothing in most things. And this is one of the things I know nothing in. But if you introduce the right kinds of bacteria and yeast and fungus into those piles, would it not be able to perhaps shift the composition of it so that it could be used to add nutrition to the soil?
You can basically create your own fertilizer by having your own recipe. We are not doing it. That's been some farmers are. It's something I wanted to look at. To be honest, I didn't have too much time.
You're an engineer.
True, but not a chemical engineer. You know, it's different to talk
it's
to
like
a
when
computer.
people think scientists know everything about science.
Yeah, it's different actually to to talk to computers than to make some recipe. You know.
Oh yeah. So has that part been difficult to get your head around? Like learning all about the soils, and I mean, did you sit with agronomists and sit with all these different kinds of people? Did you just learn on your own?
No, you talk to people, and basically whatever people are telling you, you talk to 10 people, you try to mix everything, and then you do your own, and then you see how it works. But we are organic, we are in Hawaii, so we don't have access to everything. I don't want to say we don't have access, but it's difficult actually to get whatever we want here in Hawaii. And being organic, it's very limited. So like a fertilizer, I don't have a choice of 100 fertilizer. I need to work with whatever is available here, and I need to work with that.
Yep.
And then now we've learned, we've adjusted, and we're also bringing things from the mainland. But at the beginning, I didn't know that.
Where did you learn? I mean, Jean, where does a coffee farmer go to learn about organic coffee farming?
You just talk to people and you try to apply basically what they're telling you, and then you read a little bit also to make your own opinion on things, and that's it.
Did you just change something on your microphone? We can't quite hear you.
No, there was a call, so can you hear me now?
Still not the same.
Let me see.
No problem. I'm sure Jean will be back in just a second. Are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Not so great. That's fine. I will turn you up a little bit.
Now I lost you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I lost the image.
Oh, it will pop back up eventually.
Okay.
Okay. It should be good. I've just turned you up, so it should be fine. So let's talk about processing.
Yeah.
How do you process most of your coffee?
Well, so we do we have multiple methods to process. Of course, the main way here in Kona is that we are using a wet fermented. So basically we pulp the coffee. The wet parchment coming to big tanks, and the tanks are covered with water, and we ferment them overnight or for about 12 to 15 hours. Then in the morning we wash, we pre-dry on a deck, usually for about 3-4 days, and then we finish in dryers.
Okay.
That's the let's call that the traditional way or the standard way. But now we have a lot of other methods of processing. We have what we are calling honey. So you know that a cherry, basically you have the skin, then you have the mucilage, and you have the beans. if you remove the skin and you leave the mucilage is like sugar, very, very sweet.
Okay.
So if you leave the mucilage on the beans, you don't wash, you don't ferment, you dry with this mucilage, it will give a very sweet bean at the end.
Like a natural, right?
No, so that's not a natural. The natural.
Oh, so you've taken the skin off. Sorry.
Yes. So it's basically
sorry, I missed that part.
it's in between the two.
Yes. Like a honey.
Yes, honey. So the third way is the natural way. So basically, we don't pulp. We just leave the skin. We wash the cherries.
Yeah.
And we have a big dehydrator, so we are drying in the dehydrator for sometimes. I will not say how long because that's part of our secret. So
no problem. We've all got our secrets. Cheers to Elixir.
But we are not doing them on the deck like some because we've tried. The problem to dry them under the sun is it's inconsistent.
Okay.
And so when you do parchment, so regular coffee, you can still work actually with the inconsistency a little bit. Naturals are a little bit more difficult because you can have mold very, very quickly.
Yeah. Just before we move on a little bit, do you want to try and get your picture back? I can't see you.
Yeah, I would like to. How do I do that?
There we go. You're back.
Okay.
Easy. Oh, you're gone again. Oh, gotta love a live recording, don't you?
Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
You see? Okay.
There you go. We get to see your face again. Wonderful.
So those are the three standard way that we are using. Now we slowly try to introduce other things like yeast.
Yep.
For fermentation. This year we'll try some anaerobic fermentation, so basically with no air. But those are experiments, so we'll see how it goes.
So where do you typically get your yeast for your fermentation? Do you go to Scott's? Do you go to a lab and get that, or do you have somebody that?
Well, here in Kona, it's from Lal Cafe or Scott. Yeah, that's the yeast we can use. So far, we just did some very basic tests. Testing is difficult also because, and that's how coffee is changing, or that's the way I see it. Is that when I started, even only 7 years ago, everybody was more or less doing, the traditional way, wet fermented, and that was more or less it maybe with some natural, some honey, but that was still something a little bit special. Now everybody wants to have as much ways as possible to have those what they call micro batches. That's very difficult for us farmers.
It's so labor intensive, I'm sure.
Well, it's not only labor intensive, but you don't know how it will work. Because we have to be honest. We sometimes we have a very bad coffee that's coming out of it that we cannot sell.
Yeah.
So we try to drink it ourselves, but okay. Well, that's the reality of it that people sometimes don't see, is that it's a lot of back and forth. We test. Fermentation, it looks very basic to ferment, but when you ferment a tank of 50 pounds of coffee or a tank of 5,000, they don't ferment the same way.
Yeah, I can imagine the risk involved in that must be, as a business owner and as a producer, your heart must be in your throat.
Yeah, we try to be very careful. And on top of that, you need to document everything to be able to reproduce it. If not, it's useless.
Yeah, wow.
Sometimes I'm hearing people saying, "Oh, I picked this tree myself and I did a coffee." At the end, you have 1 cup of coffee. Okay, well, what's the point? Okay, it's probably a very
good for
coffee.
you for a science experiment,
exactly.
But
so for us, at Hala Tree, what we're trying to do is that whatever we do, we are really trying to have as many people as possible to enjoy it. That's the principle of it. Because if not, we can do a very good job if we only have few people that can enjoy it. I think it's a little bit unfair for the others.
Right, and it's wasteful to the planet if you're going to take a perfectly great coffee or potentially perfectly great coffee and throw it into a science experiment, put it in a tank and add some yeast to it and woohoo, I'm going to practice what a 90-hour fermentation is going to look like, and I have no idea what I'm doing, but fuck it, let's just try it anyway and see what happens. And you spoil an amazing coffee, right?
Yeah, exactly. So again, we are very careful with the experiments we are doing. Usually we try to have one or two different new coffees every year, try to do new things, and but not, I'm not trying to do 50 experiments the same year. I think honestly, I don't think I can do it. Yeah. Some people are trying and maybe it works, but for me to ferment actually a bucket of coffee only, okay, well, it doesn't bring me much.
Mm. Yeah. And it's not just about fermenting that bucket. It's about fermenting it, getting a great result, understanding why you got a great result, and then being able to replicate it, right?
Exactly.
I mean, as an engineer, I'm sure this is much easier for you than most, but are you taking quite a scientific approach to the way that you're conducting these experiments?
Yes, in the fact that we're trying to document everything. Now, scientific, we always, like when we are using yeast, we always know how much yeast we're adding to what kind of quantity of coffee, what's the temperature, we are taking all those things.
Quality of water, the pH of the water, all of that, right?
Yes, we do that. So if that's what you call scientific, yes, we do that.
Yeah. I mean, at least that way you can then try and replicate the same thing based on the measurements that you started with and see what the result is next time. And if all of the variables are the same, you know that something else had to have changed. It Correct. Could be the environment. It could be all of that. I mean, it's so wonderful that you're actually taking a considered, thoughtful, scientific approach to conducting those experiments so that your chance of being able to replicate and then scale that is going to, even come a little bit closer to hitting the mark. Because as a business person, it's going to be important for you to fail as few times as possible.
Yeah. That's very important for it because it's a waste. I mean, and we did some experiment that we've wasted.
Yeah, and that must hurt both as an environmentalist as well as a business owner.
Yeah. It's purely in terms of business, because for the environment, again, that we don't do anything harmful anyway.
Yeah, but just wasting, like all the energy that goes into growing that it's taxing onto the ground. It's taxing. I mean, even though there's no chemicals going into it, you're using up energy and nutrition from the soil. And I know you're lucky you've got volcanic soil. It doesn't seem to end with regards to the amount of nutrition in it. But at the same time, you're growing something, it's taking out of the soil that you have to replenish with it.
Yeah, that's correct.
Did you always love coffee?
As a consumer, no, maybe I had phases, within my life where I liked it and not. There was one point where I was, I'm also an Ironman, so basically I'm, swim, bike, run. So there was a time where basically I was not drinking coffee because I thought it wasn't good for me, but which is not completely true. When everything I can read, actually, I don't see anything that bad with coffee. So in and out, I would say, but overall, I was drinking coffee since I was, I don't know, probably 16, 17 or something like that. Yeah.
How did you learn how to taste? Because if you were, I can't imagine that as a, in your previous life, with all the stress and anxiety that's involved in that, I can't imagine that you had much headspace to taste or learn how to taste.
No, but my wife is saying that I only have 2 taste buds, so it's basically good or bad,
Hey, it's a good starting point, right?
Well, it's either good or it's bad, If it's good, it's good. If it's bad,
well, we're going to start again.
No, I'm not. I have difficulties to put the flavors behind. I can taste a good coffee or a bad coffee. Mm-hmm. Some flavor I can recognize, some others I'm not a copper, and I don't think I can be a copper. But my wife actually is much better at it. So
Yes.
she's the one. Plus we have our workers. We try to work also with Madeleine, with other people, so they can taste, they can give us some feedback. That's the way you need to do it. There are people that are really specialized in tasting coffee.
Yeah.
And it's very important, every year we try to cup our coffee through different ways because that's giving us a big feedback. I know some farmers will say, "Oh, we don't need to cup the coffee. We don't need that."
Really?
Yeah, that's been. There are some that are against competitions or against cupping.
Wait. There are farmers who don't like to cup their own coffee?
Not they don't want somebody else to cup it and to give a score.
Oh, okay.
To it, which again for me, it's the score. Of course, it's important because we can always advertise or if it's a good score, but it's also very important for me to know where my coffee stands and how good it is, and to see if I can improve it.
Yeah.
So having a cupping by itself with a score, it's maybe not enough. But when we do a competition and we see that we saw in Kona in Hawaii that last year a lot of coffee with yeast actually were on top. Okay, well, immediately for me, okay, if we start to have very good coffee that are coming on top, it's something I need to look at. I don't have a choice.
Right.
So all this is important more as a business, more than just a coffee farm. We need to be very careful and to communicate, between us farmers. Of course, we have our own recipes, but it's very important if we want to stay on top. We have one of the best coffee in the world. We need to stay there.
Yeah. As a producer, where is that relationship for you between producer and competition, like barista competition or Brewers Cup competition? How important is that to you? And please don't be honest. Like, I know that this is one of those topics where people I don't really give a fuck, it doesn't matter.
No, I do. I think we're still learning. We're still learning on those things. We try to do some competitions, but I think everybody was trying to learn a little bit. If you're in Hawaii, I'm not talking for all the farmers because everybody has probably a different way of seeing things, but it was a little bit a closed environment. So we had competitions, but they were in Hawaii. We are not going actually to the international scene. We are trying actually to do that, and it's very difficult to do that, just by competition. So that's why the Brewers Cups, the barista competitions, they're important because they're a way also to bring our coffee a little bit outside, because there are much more of those competitions than the cupping competitions by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
There are much more, again, barista or Brewers Cup outside of Kona than really a cupping competitions for our coffee. Plus, we are going to competition on green and roasted. I personally prefer to go on competitions where I give my roasted because we're roasting our own coffee.
Oh, so you have a roasting label as well?
Yeah, we're doing everything. We learn how to roast, so we're roasting.
Wow.
Hopefully
and that was really easy, wasn't it?
hopefully we are not too bad at it. So.
I mean, yeah, I love it. At least you're an engineer who's learning how to roast. What kind of an engineer were you? I forgot. Sorry.
Technology. So
technology.
Computers.
That's right.
Computers. Yeah. So I like those competitions because those are the competitions where I can give my roasted coffee. So even if I need to work with the competitors, to try to adjust a little bit to have the best roast possible and so on. But as much as possible, I also want to be close to what I'm selling to clients. It's not that I don't want, but I find it a little bit strange to do things that just for a competition.
Tell me more about what you mean by that.
Well, if I do a specific roast just for a competition, but I'm not reproducing it to sell to my clients. Again, I can maybe do something that's perfect for a competition, but I also need to sell that to my clients. I think that's fair. That's the way I always work. So if I do, and we did, like when we did the Brewers Cup with Madeleine last year, so we found actually a good blend. It was a blend between naturals and red bourbon. So still 100% Kona, but it was a blend. And it was a very good blend. So we started to sell that also to our clients. But everything we do, we want to share it with the other. I think that's very important. Not only, again, to the competitor, but everybody else.
So if a competitor from anywhere in the world wanted to reach out to you and say, hey, listen, I heard you on the Map It Forward podcast. I want to come to Kona, taste your coffee, and let's see if we can work together because I want to compete for, the National Barista Champion. Is that something that you would be open to?
Oh, of course.
Great.
We're open to everything. So, as I say, I like competitions. We do competitions here in Kona. We're slowly trying to go outside. We're still learning a little bit on how it works. But yes, of course.
It's so wonderful to speak to people who are open-minded. I love my job for that reason. I mean, you could hardly call Map It I feel so lucky that this is my dream job, honestly. Since I remember when I was a little kid, my father asked me, he said to me, what are you going to do when you get older? And I said to him, I want to have conversations with people for a job. Yeah. And now it is one of my jobs. And then to be able to sit here and have a conversation with a wonderful gentleman who's growing coffee in Hawaii, who used to work in New York, working on the stock exchange. And now he's vision questing his life into learning about roasting and producing and organic farming. And hey, I want to go further. I want to work with people who are competing, and let's not stop there. Let's share it with the world. How fucking lucky am I?
Yeah. That's if you like to talk, and again, especially on the subject you like, it's great.
Yeah, it's just so I mean, we have so many problems in the coffee industry. We really do. It's always refreshing when I get to talk to people on the podcast that are just taking their own ecosystem and trying to enhance it and grow it and set an example for how to be open-minded and open-hearted about something and reinvent yourself. It's fabulous.
Yeah, again, and I'm trying also to mix basically my experience of engineering with the coffee.
Yeah, I can see.
So we were talking about all the traceability of coffee. Actually, that's something I'm working on because, I think it's very important.
Yeah. Wow. Tell me more about how you're doing that, because did I hear this right? You are working on some software?
Yeah, so what we will have for next season, so next season is starting now very soon. In the next few weeks, we'll start picking. Mm-hmm. So probably we'll have our first coffee probably in less than 2 months. We should start to have some coffee coming out. Mm-hmm. So what I did is that I've developed an application that is able to trace my coffee from the tree and the pickers to the bag that's roasted. So what does it mean? And I'll explain all the details.
Way to bury the lead, sir. We've been talking for an hour.
I have no problem to talk about that.
This is awesome.
So from the bag, the way it will work, from the bag, you will have a QR code that you'll be able to scan. You can have a picture of the picker. You'll have a picture of the roaster. You'll know when it was picked, what was done with the cherries. So basically, we've picked, September 1st. It was processed with this method. We had this kind of parchment. Then it went to green at that date. It was sorted, between the different size of beans and so on. It was roasted with this roast. That's the flavor of the coffee. So basically, you have the whole story of the coffee directly on your bag.
You know what it cupped at, who cupped it, who scored it, all of that kind of stuff?
If we have this information, yeah, because we cannot cup everything either, So the standard coffee we have, is a medium and a dark roast because that's what we're selling the most. So those ones we are not cupping, after each roast or usually we do that when we have our farm tours at the farm, we cup it, but it's not an official cupping, I would say, to put a score. It's more a quality control more than anything else. But if the information exists on the cupping, yes, it will be there also.
Yeah, wow.
But what's important on that is that because there are already things that are existing this way. But when I've looked at it, it was not the true story of the coffee. Here, it's based on data, because that's what we are lacking usually. It's the data behind the coffee. You know, we're organic, so we have a lot of data because we need it for our certification. You know, we need to justify everything. When we have an audit, we need to show actually, you know, when the picking is happening, what happened with the coffee. But still, it's not put in a way that people can understand it. Here, it's basically put in a way that everybody can understand it.
Yeah, wow. So when you collect this data, are your pickers putting it directly into the system that is the back-end system for this app? Or I'm assuming it's an app, right?
Yeah, it's an app, so it works on a phone or on a tablet. And everybody can do the inputs, and I'm doing the quality control behind. Because the problem with data is that I can enter whatever data I want. So it needs to be accurate. And that's the big part we're missing overall, is that everybody has a little bit parts of data for their own system probably, but there is nobody actually that have tried to, let's say, standardize those data somehow so we can all use them.
You know, I get approached by so many people saying, oh, so I've got the new traceability app that's going to be the fix-it system for the coffee industry, or I've built blockchain technology. I want to come on your podcast and talk about it. It's going to solve all the problems for the coffee industry and the issues with transparency and traceability. And they've always got one angle, either traceability or transparency. And this is the app that's going to fix it, or this is the blockchain technology that's going to fix it. I must have had close to 50 people in the last 12 months approach me about, can I come on your podcast and talk about this? I've said no to everybody. And the reason is because my first question to them, as someone who used to be a senior business analyst for IBM, data quality is king. And so if they can't convince me that the quality of their data is going to be something that can be depended upon, I don't want to, you can have the best app in the world, but if the quality of the data isn't there, it means fucking nothing.
Exactly. So the data are key. And for this, it's a big challenge because, well, you know, as I say, everybody has some data on their own system or on a spreadsheet or wherever it is. We don't have today actually somewhere a standardized way of presenting our data so everybody could use. It's not the app at the end. We can have 100 apps, but the data needs to be standardized so everybody can talk to this data.
Right.
So blockchain can be, you know, blockchain, everybody's talking about blockchain as being the new everything. Blockchain is just a tool. It's nothing else. It's not an app. It's not a tool. I can put my app on blockchain if I want, relatively easy. It's I don't want to talk technical, but it's just an API basically. It's nothing else. So blockchain or not, I don't think that's the most important. What would be important is and that should not be done only with one or two people. It should bring actually the people that really know coffee. And when I say no coffee, it's not only farmers. That's where it's very, very complex, is that we have farmers, but we know just for farmers all the steps we need to go to produce coffee. Each step actually we need to record, you know, from cherries to parchment. I'm losing 80% of my weight. Just this is not easy actually to represent.
Yeah, wow.
So then after that, you have all the actors. You know, when I have my green, we're not selling too much green, but you're selling your green. You need to have a traceability of your sale. Then the buyer need to keep this traceability on and on and on. That's how you will really verify the traceability to the end bag of coffee. Now, the other point also is that if you don't audit those data somehow, I think some AI could help, you know, basic steps like because we know the average yield on an acre. That would be a first step, you know. If you enter that you've for Kona, if you had a yield of 15,000 pounds on an acre, something goes wrong, it's too much, you know. So we can have those kind of checks that could help. But after that, you need somebody who would be able to more or less check those data somehow.
How would AI do that?
Well, first we need to agree to all work together. I think that's one of the first steps. That's sometimes difficult to accomplish. Is to put basically few actors on this, or partners, or from different aspects, as I say, from buyer, farmers, brokers, roasters, and everything else. Put them together and start to talk about it.
But what role would AI play?
Well, as I said, the AI actually can be an automated process, for example, that will check the yield on the coffee.
Okay.
So you cannot input something that's wrong.
Okay.
You see, so it will not be perfect, huh?
Right.
But you start actually to start to have some data that are somehow correct.
And through machine learning, it would.
Yes.
It would. I mean, as long as the better your data is, the better the machine's going to learn. And once it can learn, it will be able to assist in that process. Is that what you mean by that?
Yes, correct.
Okay, awesome. With regards to this particular subject, something that I keep pondering about this is the actual complexity that the coffee supply chain has from origin to origin. And we don't yet, unless you are a green buyer or an importer or an exporter, I don't know that we really, in the general sense of the coffee industry, have a true appreciation for how fucking complex the coffee supply chain is in every single different origin.
I agree. I think only somebody who's in the industry, and actually on a small part of the industry, because most of us, we don't know everything. Some people do, but some are not. It's a very complex process.
Yeah, and I think that's the core of where our issue lies if we're going to try and create one traceability app and one transparency app. I think we almost need a separate app per origin, because the complexity of the supply chain and the traceability within a supply chain is going to warrant different algorithms and different mechanisms for tracking within each origin.
Yes, that's been probably you're right. Now we still have some steps that are the same everywhere. We're still going from cherries to parchment to green to roasted coffee. So if you start to simplify it, instead of looking at everything, because you need to start somewhere. Most of the time when you do an app or any kind of program, you try to simplify it first.
Right.
To see if there is a common ground somewhere. And then from there, you can always try to put those branches. Okay, well, here we have a special case. Okay, let's do this. Let's deal with it separately and so on. So, but at the basis, we have the same process. We have cherries, we have green, we have roasted. That's something we all do.
Do you think that you can have an app that focuses on transparency and traceability at the same time?
So I think so. An app, actually, if you have the proper data, should be able to follow everything. Again, at least if you take those basic steps. You picked 1,000 pounds of cherries on September 1st. You produced green or parchment, if we want parchment, on September 5th, and you produced 200 pounds. Then you went to green, and then you want to roast it. We all do the same. So you have the transparency of the chain. And then after that, of course, that doesn't solve the counterfeit problems, because that will always happen.
Right. And the corruption and like all of the, in Burundi, you'll have kids that run for something. A friend of mine was telling me that he witnessed a particular time one day, the mill was about to close, and it was a few minutes to the mill closing. And he was doing an interview, and his cameraman stopped, and he turned around to see this horde of children running towards the mill with sacks. And these sacks were filled with coffee, and they had run for hours to get to this coffee mill before it closed. The kind of traceability that you're going to be able to have in a situation like that is going to be much more limited than we will on a farm where you control everything. Like from planting to roasting, it's all happening in the same ecosystem pretty much.
Well, in theory, a processor actually, when he's receiving cherries, is supposed to document who's selling that to him.
Right, but these people can't afford the same kind of technology as we can. I mean, that the accessibility to technology.
The processor should.
They should be able to, or they are able to.
The processor, I think, should be able.
Yeah, I mean, from
maybe
what
not
I
the
hear,
farmer, maybe not the farmer. That I would tend to agree, but the processor should.
Yeah, from what I've heard, they still record everything on paper, and and this is the thing. It's one thing to have the data integrity, because having the data written down, as long as it's all written down, that's great data integrity. But then having access to the technology that allows us to get that data into an app and then have the return on the investment for the person who owns the mill to be rewarded for going to the effort of entering that data into the app. So what would the return on investment be for them?
A stamp of traceability, and instead of selling at whatever is the price, it's the price plus 10 or 20% because of that stamp.
Interesting. Are you thinking of releasing the app?
I'm thinking about it at one point, but I'm not in a hurry.
I would love to have a conversation with you when you're ready about this. I think if anyone's going to be able to do it, it should be you, like only because you are a coffee producer at the same time as being a technologist. And so that's the kind of marriage that we need to have the app that we need.
Yeah, I think, well, my idea was more, well, like everything, we need to start a little bit smaller. So I was more trying, I need to start talking to the local farmers, try to get few on board so we can really have something, because as I say, those things it must be a teamwork. We all have a different ideas, and I'm sure good ideas, things that I probably didn't see, because that's normal. As I said, we don't know everything. So there will be probably some adjustments everywhere.
When you're ready to bring on board some other countries, let me know, and I'll hook you up with the right farmers that I think would be. I mean, when you're ready, I'm not rushing you. I'm just saying I want to plant that seed, because who better to create the platform that we're looking for? Because there are a lot of people. I'm sure there are a lot of people that are trying to do this, right?
Oh yeah, that's been clearly, we can see that there are a lot of apps going around, but I think they all take that different ways, and that's where the challenge will be. We need this central database, let's call that, whatever it is. It can be a blockchain or whatever. That's in this central database that everybody can access. You see, today the prime is that, and there are few other challenges. If we don't go fast, we will have large companies that have already started doing that.
And they already have. They have their own internal systems that do
exactly. And then so what will happen is that if we don't try to do it, smaller farmers together, those big ones will start to have another
monopoly
ahead, a monopoly and a step ahead, because we are never trying actually to compete with them.
I really do like the way French say monopoly. Monopoly. It's great. Can you say Honolulu?
Honolulu.
Yeah, I used to always get my aunt to say that. It sounds so much better in French than it sounds in any other language without any other accent. Awesome. With regards to some of the challenges that you guys are experiencing in Kona, in Hawaii in general, on the 27th of February this year, and I don't know how much you can talk about this, and please feel free to just say, I don't want to talk about it or I can't talk about it. But on the 27th of February, there was a lawsuit that was filed where it was a class action where a law firm filed a suit on behalf of a number of coffee producers. I believe there were 6 coffee producers that were named in the lawsuit. And the lawsuit was brought against Walmart, Costco, Amazon, Safeway, and Kroger, with the potentiality for more retailers to be added to that. And it was a lawsuit about the fact that there is fraud, allegedly fraud going on with regards to the way that Kona coffee is being marketed on packaging in supermarkets or in these retailers' stores. And so I believe the idea, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that in Kona there's 2.7 million pounds of coffee that's produced, roasted coffee available to be retailed. But when you add it up amongst the retailers, there's 20 million pounds worth of roasted coffee that's on the shelves or being sold every year. Have I got the story right?
Yeah, that's been the numbers. The numbers are correct. So yeah, there is a lot of counterfeits worldwide about Kona. The coffees has a very high price, so by default,
people will try. It's the same with a Louis Vuitton bag. If you have that or Rolex, basically you can do whatever you want. You will have tons of them on the market at $10. You can do whatever you want. That will happen. So, should something be done for the counterfeits? Yeah, I think so. How it should be done, that I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. This class action was done by some farmers. I think personally that going against, and again, maybe that's my own opinion, and I'm maybe not the best person to say that, but going against an Amazon, for example, they're only actually a broker in between a buyer and a seller. They are not verifying actually what's going on. So if we go against them, we need to go actually not only against coffee, we need to go against everything that's sold on Amazon that's not
counterfeit.
That's a counterfeit. Because then they need to have a process basically to verify each bag of coffee that's, in this case, coffee that's sold, or each product that is sold on their platform.
Because this isn't a new thing, is it? This has been happening for years. I mean, if I'm understanding correctly from the research that I've done, you can call something a Kona blend, but it must have 10% Kona coffee in there, Kona grown coffee in there, correct?
Yeah, the Kona name is not a name that cannot be copied, basically. So at the end,
Is it like organic? Like you have to be able to certify that it's organic to be able to claim that something's organic, right?
But that's not really the case. So here in Kona, if you have only 10%, you can still call it Kona.
Okay.
So it's true that it's a lot of confusion. There are a lot of talks going, people trying to change that, but it doesn't happen. Then going against, trying to negotiate to a 50% instead of 10%. I'm of the opinion is that either it's Kona or it's not. So as soon as you start to introduce something different, it should not be called Kona. That's my own opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Why to go, to try to negotiate a 50% at the end? If I have a good coffee, I'll be able to sell it if I have the Kona name. And so far, that's been I'm able to sell my coffee anyway.
Yep.
So what does it bring me, to try to negotiate to be called Kona to have at least 50%? I'm looking at the quality of the coffee at the end. So it's either I sell something that's good or I sell crap. If we think that the blend, and I'm not saying that's the case, but if we think that the blend is a crap coffee, it will be crap with 50% or with 80% or 90%. Right. So at the end, that's when it's either we call it Kona and it's 100% or not. That's my own opinion. But today, 10% you can still call it Kona blend. And there is a lot of confusion.
You're diluting the brand so much by only requiring 10% of it to be Kona. You could put, I mean, if the requirement is 10%, you could throw it in there with a Robusta and still call it Kona coffee.
Yes. And that's in, as I say, at the end, everybody can drink whatever they want. What's a little bit unfair is basically more the pricing that they're sometimes trying to get, because that's the whole idea. It's purely business. It's nothing else. To sell, to try to confuse the consumer with the Kona name and give them a blend instead.
I was outraged. So my introduction to Kona coffee was when Elixir started, and one of my business partners was going to Hawaii for a trip. And I said to her, listen, I've heard of this Kona coffee. Can you do me a favor? Can you bring some back for me? And so she did. She brought a few bags of roasted, and she kind of selected different brands. And she's not a coffee person, so she wouldn't have known what to buy and what not to buy. And she gave it to me, didn't mention a word about how much it cost. And she said to me after I tested it, she's like, how did it taste? I'm like, it was all shit. And she's like, are you joking? One of those packets cost me $120. I'm like, the fuck? What?
That's a big problem. We are doing farm tours. We're also doing farmers market because we want to be in contact with some clients, because if not, we don't see them. And so we are spending a lot of time actually trying to teach them. And I'm never saying that it's good or bad, because that's for them to decide. But at least when they buy something, they should know what they buy. It's really
authenticity is important, isn't it?
Yes, but it's coming back basically to a marketing campaign that we should do somewhere explaining those differences. That would solve a lot of issues. On our we are improving our bags every other year or so, to try to put more information on the bag so the client knows exactly what they're buying. Like this year, because so far we didn't have much, of those red bourbon and so on. This year, we are starting to put the type of trees on the bag. So we are always adding. Nice. So the client actually, if he doesn't care, he doesn't care, never mind, but at least he has the information. That's the whole idea of this QR code that I was explaining, is that the client will know exactly what he's buying at the end.
And I feel that there's a movement happening in the world where people are starting to care. There's not a lot of people, but there are some people that are starting to care where their food comes from.
Yeah. And so, and it's a lot of things. So we're talking about the counterfeit and the blends and so on, but it's the same with organic. You have some people that are claiming they're organic when they're not.
Yeah.
It happens. So it's the same principle. So at the end, we really need to teach those people somehow. And we all need to do it individually, but we should do it maybe a little bit more as a group. And that's that we're missing a little bit. And again, I'm not against the blender. If they want to blend, they should blend. But the transparency should be very important.
It must hurt the people who are doing it authentically, though. It must hurt your business.
I don't know. And I will explain why I'm saying that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know some farmers disagree with me also on this. But if you think about it, the Kona coffees today, we usually don't have a problem to sell it.
Right.
Will it be the case in 5 years? I don't know. But today, every good farmer should be sold out beginning of the year.
Okay.
More or less. So we have no problem. Actually, usually we're counting our beans, until the next season to make sure that we can fulfill the orders we have.
Just before you go on there, is it when you say that it's not difficult to sell it, is it usually to a domestic market, a local market, or an international market?
We probably all have our different clients a little bit everywhere. So,
but people overseas want it too.
Everybody will give you different answer. Usually, I know for us, we have some clients in Asia, some clients in the US. Europe is a little bit more difficult because of shipping. It's expensive.
Mm-hmm. The Middle East?
We have some retail clients in the Middle East.
Okay.
But we never tried also to market more because we don't have it. So you see, it's also, as I was saying, the fact that we can sell relatively easy our coffee, it just also, it doesn't push us to go
To see what you need, right? This, you know, how they say, what's that saying with entrepreneurs? Necessity is, oh God, I can't believe it. I think about this saying every day and I can't remember. But the basic idea is that, you know, when you don't have the resources, you're forced to find a way to do something.
Yeah. So we have no problem to sell our coffee, and we're selling it, as we were talking previously, at a very good price.
Yeah.
So when we say farmers are losing money, you know, because of the counterfeit or because of the blends, I'm not sure I could justify that or I can show that with data.
Well, because you're not losing sales either, are you?
Well, and again, I'm talking for myself. That's I think I have a coffee that's good. I have no problem to sell it, and I'm selling it at a good price. So, with all this, can I actually say that in 2 years, let's say if the lawsuit's going through and the blends are stopping and so on, can I sell my coffee at least 20 or 30% more than I'm selling it today? Because that's the whole idea. If we are not sure that we can do that, it's useless.
Right.
If we talk purely in terms of business, not in terms of quality, but at least in terms of business.
But going through the experiment to see the outcome might be helpful as well.
Yes, but maybe not requesting actually a dollar fine, but maybe something else.
Like what?
Helping us to recognize the Kona name worldwide.
Do you think that people are insightful enough to do that?
No.
Yeah. I think, and this is just my personal opinion, the idea that people really need to be in a place of necessity before they can start to innovate. And before they can start to think openly, to problem solve in creative ways. And until then, solutions are usually one-track minded, in my opinion. You know, just with the way that I approach business. It's why I recommend for all businesses, bootstrap your business as long as you can. Like, even if you're making money, put it aside for a rainy day, but bootstrap the shit out of your business so that you can learn and find all the gaps and the solutions that you need to problem solve without taking the easy way out.
I agree. That's the principle on the business. You know, that's what you need to do, and that's what's interesting also.
I find it the most delicious kind of thinking there is. But I'm a born entrepreneur in that sense. I don't quite know that I'm good at it yet, but I definitely enjoy it. And I don't think I'll ever be able to admit whether I'm good at it or not, but I definitely enjoy the problem solving side of it. It's the most fun part of being an entrepreneur for me.
Yeah, it's some days difficult.
Oh, fuck, tell me about it. Some days you kind of think, wouldn't it be nice to just have a job again?
Overall, you're right. That's really what's fun overall, is to be able to do these kind of things and to solve those problems. But, you know, there are always up and downs. And when you're on the downside, some days, there's a little too much to it.
Oh, and those are the days where you think, gosh, just having a desk job and collecting a paycheck every week was just really lovely. I got to wear beautiful heels to work every day and nice business suits. And, you know, at the end of the day, if the project didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to turn out, but it was still successful, hey, so be it. You know, it's a small part of a big business. Though there are some days where I think about that.
You have your own. It's still more fun and more.
Oh, yeah.
That, you know, I would not give it up for anything.
No, and this is what I say to people who are thinking about getting into business. It's like, listen, just prepare yourself. There are going to be days where life's going to suck, and you
have to do things that you're not even neither equipped, neither even thinking that you will have these kind of problems. You have surprises, you know, that you're saying, what's happening here?
I remember in the first time that the business ran out of money, and I couldn't afford to pay myself. And this is something that happens to every single business, and it never happens just once. And it you'll run out of money, and you have to like not pay yourself as a business owner, and managing cash flow is terribly hard, and et cetera, and then things go good, and then a couple of years later the same thing happens, and you're like, what but haven't we gone through this already?
You can have the best plan around that.
Right.
You will always have that. It's you need to be ready for it.
And I remember in a dummy spit moment where I was like acting like a child in my own mind. I'm like, fuck this, I wasn't born to be poor. And I just kind of looked at myself in the mirror when I was thinking that, and I thought, really, princess, is this what this shit is about? Grow the fuck up. Honestly, like, you did not get in this to get rich. You got in this to learn about business and learn about you and be your own boss. And sure, you didn't expect it was going to be this hard, but would you go back?
No way.
I
know my wife is asking me sometimes if I would go back, because we don't want to.
Yeah.
But no, even if some days as you say, that I'm thinking, I had a great job, that I was traveling all around the world. I had large teams. That's an interesting job. I cannot complain about that.
Yep.
I had fun, but I would not go back.
No.
Tons of reasons. It's been not only the office work, but even go back to a big city would be a prime for me now.
That's something that I do fantasize about, the idea of being able to not live in a city, and kind of, even if it was to be in a city that was a lot smaller than where I am now. Like, San Diego is a sleepy town compared to Los Angeles. It really is. And even compared to Sydney. But the number of people that exist in this country is so overwhelming. I come from a country, like in Australia, there's 22 million people in the whole country. There's more people than that in Los Angeles County.
Yeah, and if you go to other countries like India or China, it's even worse. So
that's what keeps me away from those countries. I would love to go and visit China. I think I would find that really interesting. And a lot of the people in coffee that I've spoken to from China are just such beautiful humans. And it's just the overwhelm that I think I would experience being around that many people. Being in New York gives me anxiety for every moment that I'm there. I love being in New York, but I can be there for maybe 4 or 5 days before I start going out of my mind with anxiety.
Yeah, same for us. Now, as soon as we go to a big city, it's okay for a few days. But after that's when it starts to be, as you say, when too many people, too much rush, too much. It's a different kind of stress, because we're stressed here also with the day-to-day, but it's not the same kind of stress. I don't like it anymore in those big cities. I cannot. I cannot.
I'm sure you don't miss it. I mean, I'm sure there's things about it you miss, but it's not the important stuff.
Yeah, that's when it's true that we are in a small town here. So, you want to go out to a restaurant, you don't have that much choice. That's when you always go to the same one. But okay, well, that's not a big deal. You can live with this. And anyway, even when you're in a big city, usually you have your favorite and you're staying about your 5 or 6 places anyway.
Yep.
So it's not a big difference at the end.
No.
It's so much easier actually to live.
I imagine the simplicity of it is lovely, but also the community aspect of it must be so nice.
Yeah. Was
it difficult to get used to?
It's now being farmer. It's also challenging in terms. We have a good community, but it's not the community where you see people every day.
Oh, okay.
Because we're on farms. We are far from each other usually.
Yeah.
Or we are not that close, so we don't see each other on a regular basis. Plus, we have work to do, so everybody has always something to do. So it's difficult to see. That's one of the things I saw when I came, and that's probably the same everywhere. I'm not talking specifically about
about the community here, because people are very nice and actually they are very helpful here. When we came, here to Kona, everybody was here to give us advice on the coffee, on everything. So people were always very helpful. But you don't see people.
Yeah, wow. But when you go out to dinner to the 3 or 4 restaurants that you do have to choose from, I'm sure you know lots of people that are there.
Yeah, that's of course, because it's smaller and everybody's going to the same places. So it's easier to meet people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Something that I wanted to talk about that we've spoken about on the podcast before, but we never deep dived into it. And I've got new information since we spoke about it the first time. People may not know that African coffees are not allowed in Hawaii.
I don't know.
No. So there's actually legislation that African coffees are not allowed in Hawaii. They're not allowed to be imported through customs into Hawaii because of something called CBD, which is called coffee berry disease. And
you mean the coffee berry borers?
No, this is a fungus. It's a fungus that's currently in Africa. Okay. So they only find this in Africa, this fungus, and it causes coffee berry disease. Okay. And so at the time that it was prevalent in Africa, the Hawaiian coffee legislating body kind of made it so they were so worried about this coming into Kona and affecting the ecosystem there and the coffee economy there that they banned African coffees from coming into Hawaii.
Well, in Hawaii, we have a strong quarantine. And usually when you bring seeds or trees, you need to go through the whole quarantine process. And it usually works quite well if it's followed. The problem is that you always have some, we're on an island, so we are very protected. But if something comes here, then we are done. That's when we have it.
Yep.
The coffee berry borers, we have them, I don't know, they came in 2009, 2010. And now we need to deal with them every year because they're there and we cannot get rid of them. And they came from somewhere.
So they don't know where this coffee berry burrow came from?
I don't think so.
Wow, that's
they're
interesting.
More or less here on the island, or on the island, they're everywhere. On the other islands, I think they are very limited.
So is it an insect?
Yeah, it's an insect.
Yeah, wow.
It's a very small fly, basically, that's eating the beans.
And what's the solution?
So that's when we bought our farm. Actually, it was really the start of it. And
that must have been fun.
Wasn't prepared, actually, to deal with it. So we didn't know what to do. Now we know it much better, so we can deal with it. But it's still additional dollars to be able to maintain a low percentage of infestation, people, products, and so on.
Tell me, how do you approach something like that when it comes to organic farming? Because let's say a pharmaceutical company, for all intensive purposes, turns around and says, well, this is what you need to be doing to kill this bacteria or fungus or whatever it is that's causing disease in your tree, or an insect. This is what you've got to spray. That's one solution for some farmers. But when it comes to your approach as an organic farmer, how do you figure something like that out?
Well, so far we didn't have the problem. So
fingers crossed it never happens.
So that's good. If it was happening, we need to work with USDA, with the auditors, and start to see what are the products. There are exceptions sometimes that you can get. If it's, I think if you have, if it's declared as a state emergency, actually they can give you some
concession
waivers or whatever. But at the end, if you're very strict on organic, even if you have the waiver, you start to spray or use some products that would not be organic.
Right.
But at the end, it's also you also, it's either you lose your crop or you need to figure out a solution.
Then it becomes an economic decision, right?
Well, I think losing a farm for somebody like us, that we cannot really do that. I think we cannot afford.
It's not an option. Yeah, yeah.
So even if we had to lose our organic certification just for a reason like this one, I don't know, it didn't happen. I would need to think a little bit more about that. But clearly, if it's either I lose my income, basically, or I need to spray something that's not organic because there is nothing else really. I don't know. I mean, that's. I don't think you have too much choice. Huh?
Do you have scientists and agronomists and things like that you can go to and say, look, we need to find a solution?
University of Hawaii, we have agronomists in Oahu that are working on all those things on a regular basis.
Yeah, wow.
So they're helping us. That's been there with us on a regular basis. As soon as I'm not an agronomist, so there are things that I see on the field. I have no clue what it is. So usually I'm calling them and they're coming, they're helping me. They will tell me, oh, this is this. Or if they don't know, they take a sample, they do analysis and so on.
So do they, is that like a free service, a relationship kind of thing that happens?
Yes.
Wow, that's wonderful. Are you in contact with SCA about that as well? Have you spoken with the research team there, headed by Peter Giuliani?
Not myself. So maybe somebody is that. Usually we are going to the University of Hawaii. We have a good person here that's helping. We have a good relationship, and she's helping for everything.
Awesome. I will make sure to introduce you to Peter Giuliano. He's the chief research officer over there, and they're starting a new program, actually, a new organization. It's not a program. It's I think the class of it is like a charity. And so they're looking to work with people who are doing actual real research about things. So he might be able to, UC Davis is one of the organizations that they're working with very closely. It's always great to have extra resources that you have access to, particularly with this kind of.
I agree. Yeah, that's where we're all scared actually that something like this would come here to Hawaii, because we are not really ready actually to deal with it.
Yeah, I'll make sure that I introduce you to Peter, because you never know when something like this hits, right?
Oh yeah, that's when it can come anytime, and then when it's there, it's usually too late.
Yeah, this coffee berry disease, they thought it was systemic in Africa, and so they, in fear of it coming to Hawaii. Again, this is just what my research. Actually, there was somebody that emailed. Let me find out who that was, because this person deserves props. They emailed after the episode that Madeline was on, and he was wonderful in giving us the information about who was it? It was. Yes, it was Sean Steinman.
Yeah, Sean. Yeah, I know Sean.
Am I saying that correctly? Steinman?
You probably say it right. Yes.
Right. So Sean actually reached out after the episode that Madeline was on, and he explained that this. He actually gave us the information that it was coffee berry disease is the reason that African coffees are not allowed to be imported into Hawaii, and that even though they've found out that it's actually not a threat anymore, the legislation still hasn't changed, because these things just take time to change. So it's not a threat. So I mean, I wish you guys had the opportunity to be able to enjoy great African coffees over there. But I mean, I don't know that you really care either, because you've got amazing Kona coffee to enjoy.
Well, it's always good to taste some other coffee, but we can do that when we are going to the mainland or anywhere else.
Do you go to lots of expos to try and get Hawaiian coffee's name out there?
Usually the associations are going. So like the Hawaii Coffee Association is going, like they were in Boston or Seattle the years before. So they have a booth or a stand actually for the Hawaiian coffee.
All right, awesome. There's something else that may sound strange that I wanted to talk to you about. There seems to be a shifting trend, and I didn't know about your odd life before I thought about talking to you about this, and now so it may feel quite weird that I'm talking to you about it, but there seems to be a lot of hedge funds that are trying to get into the coffee industry in Hawaii.
A lot, I don't know. There are some actually that are trying or they are entering actually in the industry here in Hawaii, yes.
Is it price related? Is it like, what's the agenda there?
Well, I don't know how they see it. Now, when you look at the price of coffee, if you have actually enough of it, maybe it could make sense if you really have a good operation. Can you make millions out of it? I'm not sure. But there are some that are coming that are starting to create some very, very large farms.
Yeah, huge.
And that's what everybody will have a different opinion actually on this also. When you start to have more quantity, that's when will the price go up? Will the price go down?
Right.
Will the quality stay? Will the quality stay the same? Because usually, it's easy to do a good product at a small scale. It's difficult actually to keep actually this product quality very high with a very large scale. Is it possible? Yeah, if you have the right people and if you have the right knowledge, that's when I don't see why not. Now, in terms of prices, I don't know. At one point, I thought that it was dangerous more I think for us, purely as a farmer, the risk I see is the price on one side, because if you have more quantity, by default, the price can go down, especially if the quality is not there. Because
Which is Brazil, right? That's what's happening in Brazil.
Yes, because
I'm not saying that. Can I just qualify that? Sorry, I'm not saying that the quality in Brazil is shit. That's not what I'm saying at all. I was purely talking from a yield perspective, that there is because Brazil and Vietnam and Colombia are producing such huge quantities of coffee, it's driving the price down. That's all I was saying.
Exactly. And sometimes you can even think, do they do that on purpose? I don't know.
Right.
But here in Kona, when you start to have a very large farm coming, with thousands of acres, that's when they will, they will represent 1/3 of the overall volume or even more sometimes.
That's huge.
And on top of that, if their quality is not there, that can be a big problem because the quality of Kona will go down.
Yep.
So that's one thing. So the prices can be a problem. The other problem I see, and that's a big problem actually, and more an immediate problem, because prices, it will take some time to see some impact, is the manpower. We don't have enough people here on the island. So when you start to have a farm of 1,000, 2,000 acres that is coming here, well, I hope they have a good plan actually for their manpower, because we don't have enough people. You need to, even if you have machines to do a lot of things, it's still a farm of 2,000 acres. You still need to work on it. You need a lot of people for that.
So you don't think that they'll mechanize most of it and try and use, there was I've said this before on the podcast, there's not a festival, an expo that happens called Chips and Seeds, I think it is. Happened in Milan a couple of months ago. It's quarterly, it goes around the world, and they were saying that the biggest threat to agriculture is AI and mechanization.
Yeah, I don't see technology as a threat actually, but more help. In our conditions here in Kona, you see, I don't know. I'm always thinking about things, but if I could have an automatic mower, so something that I just push a button and basically, we have our coffee in rows, so in theory it should work.
Right.
I don't have enough means to do that, but I don't see why it should not work.
Unless you have a human whose job it is to mow that lawn manually or on a tractor, like some sort of a mechanized.
So I can save one or two guys that's doing the mowing. They can do something else, and they can do something maybe more interesting than sitting on a tractor, the whole day and mowing lawns. That's just one example. Now, will they be mechanic? Yeah, probably they'll try to have as much machine as possible. Now, can they pick mechanically? No. So during the picking, they will need those pickers.
Right.
Because a mechanical picker needs to have one picking. Basically it's a machine going above the tree and it's taking everything that's there. If we have cherries coming, ripe every 3 weeks here, are they way to optimize that? Yeah, they are ways to try to have only one flowering, one. Will it work here? I don't know.
Yeah, wow. So there's still testing that needs to go on before they can know how to do that.
I don't know. That's honestly, I don't know how they will do. I didn't talk to them, so I don't know.
Excuse my ignorance about this, but the mechanized machines, do they shake the trees and then catch the cherries that fall, or do they strip the cherries? How does it work? Do you know?
No, I'm not a specialist on that, and I didn't look really because we cannot use them.
Yeah,
I saw some other nice machine actually that were very, but they would not work here in Hawaii. I saw one actually that had like, how do you call that? Those, for the music, those a diapason, is it?
Which one?
For the music to have the sound. How do you call that? It has those vibration,
like an amplifier?
Well, it's basically a machine that you touch the tree and it's shaking the branch and everything's falling on it.
Right.
So there are things that they're trying actually to create, to pick, but still the fact that we have different ripeness on the branch, they don't work here.
Yeah, wow. Oh, because you can't get the machines up there at that kind of it's about the elevation, right?
Well, plus it's not really the elevation. It's just that the machine cannot really recognize the green from the red.
Okay.
Now you have color sorters at the end, but you don't want to pick the green one.
No, because you can't use that coffee. Yeah, wow. I think it'll be really interesting to see what these hedge funds are doing with these coffee farms, because thinking about it, if they are able to influence a market, isn't there an issue with the fact that they have these coffee plantations or coffee farms and are also trading, if they're trading on the sea market as well? Is that a conflict?
Well, so I don't know if they will trade on the market. Specialty coffee, as far as I know today, there are no market. Well, and I don't think they will go to the sea market because it doesn't make sense to trade at $1.
Right. No. Especially, do you think that they may be introducing a different category of coffee so that it's not specialty? If they're going to have a mechanized farm and they're interested in, for them, profit from a profitability perspective, and this is, we're talking out of our asses here. We don't know what they're doing.
I honestly don't know what's their plan. So I don't know. They must have one, because usually those guys are not wasting their money, but I don't know what's their plan.
It'll be very interesting to see how this goes, because I'm suspecting that it's not the end. I think that this is something that's going to continue to happen. If one's going in there, that they've got to have done some research to make that happen.
Probably. But again, I cannot talk too much about that, because, to be honest, I don't know really what they are doing. I know what they are doing, but I don't know what's their plan behind. So
does that make you nervous?
What I heard is that they already have clients basically to sell their coffee. That I heard. But I don't know. A basic question is that what will happen if this one or two big clients suddenly decide not to buy from them? They will need to dump actually their coffee on the market at a low price.
Which isn't good either way.
Which is not good for any of us. So again, I don't know. I'm just talking without knowing. But those are the kind of problems we can have.
Yeah, wow.
But the immediate problem I see is really the manpower, because they need manpower. Even if they do a lot of things mechanically, they need manpower.
They'll just build houses and bring other people and teach them.
Yeah, but they already started planting. So, they need people in the meantime also. Yeah. So, again, will they be self-sufficient? I don't know.
They've got to have a plan. These people don't typically do stuff without having solutions. Maybe it's some weird social experiment that we don't know anything about.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, it's difficult because they are not giving a lot of information.
Is there unrest about their presence in the Hawaiian?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are a little bit worried for multiple reasons. Everybody has their own worry, but yes. They are saying, we want to make sure that they are not bypassing the rules for for the quarantine, for example, because we know they're planting different types of trees that are not existing here in Hawaii, or at least not in Kona. So, well, if they bring new things, that's no problem. Why not? Everybody should be able to do that, but they still need to follow the proper rules, So those are the things that I guess the state needs to make sure that they, like they would do with anybody else.
But the
we
question
need
is,
to make
will
sure
they?
that they cannot cut corners.
Right. And this is, I think, a problem that exists in coffee at every origin, is this relationship between coffee production being such a big earner for a country and the relationship between that government and corruption. It happens everywhere.
Corruption or not, it's if there are rules, it's either there are good rules or there are
the broken rules.
Let's change them, but let's change them for everybody, not for only one because it's big. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, if there's one thing that I've learned about living in this country is that everything seems to bend if you have enough money to bend it and enough strength. And usually the money or the power is what gives you the strength to bend so many rules in this country.
We're in the US, so it's
flexible.
We should not have any corruption here.
How long have you lived here? I've only lived here for 3 years, and I know that that's not true.
It's supposed not to be any corruption.
Right. Yeah.
Then you need to. It's like everywhere. You need to find your ways to get where you want to go.
That's a really great way to put it.
There are things that maybe you can bend a little bit because maybe it makes sense overall, but there are things that you should not be able to touch.
Well, especially when it's when we're talking at the industry level, right? Because if there's this hedge fund that owns such a 1/3 of the total crop yield annual for
I don't know if it's 1/3, but it's huge.
For example's sake, like let's say it's that much. If there's one rule for them and a different rule for everybody else, we've got a real problem in that situation.
There are a lot of problems even before they came. You have in coffee you have so you have farmers like us, like Hala Tree or others. We do everything basically. From the trees to the roasting. Mm-hmm. But basically, a lot of farmers here in Kona, it's probably the same in the world. They don't produce roasted coffee, neither green. They just pick their cherries and they're selling to processors.
Oh.
And those processors are actually in the same situation as those big ones because they basically control so much of those farmers and those farmers don't have a choice. They cannot go against those processors because if not, you will tell, I'm not buying your cherry. Or I will give you
and
less.
And they don't have anywhere else to go?
And so at the end, they will just basically follow whatever those processors are telling them. Some of them are very honest. Some of them are a little bit less. That's a big problem. You see,
how many processors are there? Are there a lot? Or there's not a lot to choose from?
I've never counted them, but probably about 5 of them, I'm guessing.
So there's a handful.
We are not talking about hundreds of them. It's been maybe it's 10, I don't know, of different size, but there are few of them that are big ones. Some of them, again, very honest, and then in this case, no problem. Some of them are a little bit less honest. So then as soon as you want to do something, even as an association, then you're stuck with those guys because they can more or less have so many farmers behind them just because they're processors that they're basically stuck the rest of the industry is stuck because of them.
Yes.
If you want to change a law or anything, you're going against those guys and they're representing a lot of farmers.
Yeah, wow.
And they have their own, and I'm not complaining about them. I'm just saying that, when we work, we need to work all together and we need to be inclusive. And very often here we go against different objectives.
Yeah. I find Hawaii fascinating. The industry you guys have got going on there, I find so fascinating. I hope I get to visit one day soon, just to be able to come and meet with you guys and sit and have dinner and see your farms and talk about at length.
You're welcome. You can come anytime.
Thank you. I hope I end up with a reason to come because I think it's such an interesting ecosystem. Like, you're selling your coffee for $16 a pound when most of the rest of the world is selling it for far, far less than that. Like, some farmers are trying to get $1.50 a pound, and they think that that's huge money.
Yeah, that will. I
Fascinating.
think over time that will.
You say that again? Over time, what?
I think it will improve over time.
You see, I don't.
I think you will have to, the way I see it is that you will have actually a category that will stay at this level or whatever the market is at a low level. But what will happen is that you will have more and more coming to the specialty coffee side.
I absolutely agree with you there. And I think that specialty will become, a few things need to move into place for that to happen. We need roasters to start to relationship buy. We need that to become a trend. And let's be real, 5% of the industry is specialty coffee. Like, it's a very tiny part of it right now. But not only do we need more roasters to be relationship buying focused, we need people who are drinking coffee to understand the value of spending money on coffee that has been responsibly sourced. And if we don't have that, we're not going to shift the needle anything significant.
Well, it will shift because you will have those big companies that will try to have at least a branch of them to be in the specialty coffee.
Oh, well, they have to have that so that they can cover up their fuckery.
It's basically just, it's a good business for them to do. That's
right.
I understand why they would do that.
Yes, it would be nice if they tried to move their whole business model to that, but then we understand they won't be able to be competitive then. Right.
That would be a big problem.
Yeah, but you see, the part of this that makes me wonder if it will shift, and I absolutely agree with you. I think that the specialty model is going to it's going to create a vacuum eventually.
Yeah.
But something that I think that we don't know how this variable is going to affect pricing is mechanization and AI. Coupled with climate change. I wonder what the effects of climate shifting are going to do on the industry with regards to where, how that's going to affect crop yields and crop viability with shifting, temperatures and microclimates and things like that. But also, I wonder if people, as technology advances around all of this stuff, and entrepreneurship really does become something that's a real option to most people, given that jobs are going to start going away once robots become a thing. I wonder if people are going to start innovating in the coffee space to help drive cost of production down. And if that's the case, people are going to be able to afford to sell it less and be profitable eventually. And I don't know, like, all of this stuff is speculative.
It's really difficult to answer, but if it happens, if you have more AI, more technology, what will happen is that people will slowly actually try to go towards cities. That's what happened in the past, 100, 200 years.
Right.
Technology, we are not living anything new now comparing to 200 years ago. It's different and it's moving at a faster pace because we have more people.
Yes, so many people.
That's the way it is, it's basically exponential in terms of number of people. So everything's moving much more faster, and we need to.
Yes.
Because, at the end, we need to follow through. If not, we will have another problem. So I think, technology is a good thing. It should be there. It should help the people. And yes, at the end, we will have people that are maybe farmers today. Tomorrow, they will go to city and do something else. And their kids will be even better. And not better, but what I mean is that they will do things different. They will work maybe to build this technology or so. Yeah. Because they will have some knowledge from the field, which doesn't exist today, in somewhere else.
Yeah. And it's like that recycling of knowledge, or that repurposing of knowledge. Yep. Not recycling. They're going to repurpose the knowledge into a way that cycles back into the system and hopefully elevates it somehow so that we don't lose that expertise. That would be ideally what would happen.
Yeah, ideally, that's what, I hope that's what will happen.
Like when we get someone that leaves tech as a technology engineer, comes into coffee and then recycles the information, the smarts that they have from that into the industry they're currently in, and it all comes full circuit.
Exactly. It's going both ways.
What a great place to end our conversation. Jean, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure, actually. It was great, actually. 2 hours. It went very quickly.
It flies like that. People often say, what are we going to talk about for 2 hours? I'm like, we're just going to have a conversation. You won't even feel the time go by. It'll go so quickly. And it really does. It goes so quick, doesn't it?
Yes, very quickly. I was also wondering, 2 hours, it's long, but actually it flew by.
No. And when you speak to interesting people, you never run out of things to talk about. You have a rich, interesting experience in life. So it's my pleasure to have you on the podcast. I can't wait to have you back. And I can't wait to come and taste your coffee.
Yeah, anytime. You're welcome to come.
It will be my pleasure. Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Jean.
Thank you.
See you later. Bye.